live, so if you want to just start with your intro.
Good morning, equestrians. It's Mike Nicodema from Global Showgrounds in lovely Wellington, Florida. This is the next installment of the Equine Industry Group podcast series. And today we have a very special guest, as always. This is a lady who's one of the top insurance agents in all of Florida. She insures some of the biggest venues around, including showgrounds, including barns, including horses. You name it, she insures it. Now, being an equestrian herself, she has a particular expertise in insurance for equine-related activities, and we're going to talk about those today. She is the director of Flagler's Equine Insurance Division. She's a friend of mine, and I'm very proud to introduce to all of you today, Missy Sullivan. Good morning, Missy.
Good morning, Mike. What an introduction. Thank you.
So we're going to talk about a lot of things today. We're going to talk about some of the bigger issues that equestrians face
Yes.
in terms of getting insurance for venues and horses and processing claims and things that when we talked last time, you said oftentimes are overlooked.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about those, but you are a horse person, you are an equestrian, you are a rider. So let's talk about you a little bit. Let's get our audience familiar with you and your journey to becoming director of Flagler's Equine Insurance
Yes,
Group.
quite a journey, and I'm super excited. So, as a rider, I've been riding on the A circuit my entire life on the East Coast and on the West Coast. Hunter jumpers, some of the top trainers, lucky enough to have married my passion, which is definitely horses, with my career, insurance. So lucky to do that and be able to just partner and do everything equine. My career in insurance started about 30 years ago. I have retail and wholesale background, licensed in New York, started there, moved to LA, still riding out there, doing insurance, then I landed here in Wellington. I don't even think I need to say why. Here we are, beautiful backdrop. So it ended up landing in Wellington and marrying my career with the horses, and am lucky enough to have all horse people, the horse shows, doing equine insurance for the mortality side. I'm super excited, and I launched this division at Flagler last year, which has taken off immensely. I have a really good support group behind me, and I'm super excited to be here doing this and talking to you and educating people about some things with insurance, equine related, that are often overlooked.
Now, I know you as Missy.
Yes.
All your friends know you as Missy. Now I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. I went on Flagler's website,
Yes.
and they list you to have this wonderful picture of you, and it says R. Melissa Sullivan. I get the Melissa, Melissa Missy.
Yeah.
But what's the R, and where did that come from?
Oh God, we're really going to go there. Okay. So a long, long time ago, worked at a wholesale shop on Wall Street in Manhattan, and my director there told me, put my first initial of my name, which I'll disclose, then Melissa Sullivan. It just looks more professional.
Mm-hmm.
So the R is for Roberta. Not a lot of people know that. Now they do. And I am actually named after my godmother, Sister Roberta, who was a nun. It's true.
And you carry that holiness around with you wherever you go, right?
Okay, it's out there now.
Okay.
So yeah.
Now, when we met last time, you really educated me a lot of things having to do with just insurance in general, but equine insurance in particular, which I didn't know. I mean, my wife and I have been selling horses for 30 years, and I have my Greenberg Traurig Equine Industry Group where we service all the needs of equestrians. I didn't know this at all. One of the things you talked about, you used the acronym NOA liability, and I wrote it down. I want to make sure I get it right. Non-owned auto. And this is one of the things we were talking about that equestrians just don't focus on.
Nope.
Tell our audience about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, on my way out here, I was on the phone with somebody at Flagler, one of my executives who assists me, and we were talking about a particular insured and the non-owned auto liability. It's super important. I can't believe that a lot of agents even miss this, and that's our job as an agent, is to educate the client. I mean, not sell, but educate, so they're an educated consumer. They know what they're buying or not buying. Non-owned auto is such an easy coverage to get. It's not expensive, and if you don't have it, it's a huge gap. and it leaves a huge exposure on any farm, on any person, on any company, whether it be equine or straight up commercial. And what it is, you can only buy it on your GL policy unless the carrier writes a monoline standalone, but it's non-owned auto liability. So a company, a trainer has employees. They all do. They have grooms, they have riders, they have managers, they have employees. That employee drives their personal vehicle to run to the tack shop to get anything for the barn. On the way back, has an accident. The barn gets sued. The trainer, the LLC gets sued. There's no coverage unless they have non-owned auto liability. So it's exactly that, non-owned auto. My employee's auto, personal auto, not owned by the trainer or the LLC, does an errand on behalf of the company, has an accident, the company gets sued, that's where the coverage is. If there is no non-owned auto liability, there is zero defense for that entity. And it's not expensive.
Wow. So the LLC in that situation, the LLC's kind of doesn't help. They can go after the.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't help.
They can go after the personal assets of the folks that own the LLC. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I mean, that seems like an easy fix. That seems like thing one that you tell the barn owners, the venue owners, like you're gonna have your grooms or anybody, any employees, driving your vehicles. They better be covered.
Yeah, if they have their own personal auto, which they do, and they're going to run an errand. So that's a conversation that any good agent would have with their prospective client or their client. Say, do you have employees? Okay, we need to do the non-owned auto. It's not even a question. It's so inexpensive. It's ridiculous.
And I guess you could have like an auto that's some old car that you have your employees driving around, the grooms and everything, and
that would be an owned auto.
Oh,
so if the LLC owns the auto, then it's covered under the business auto policy of that company. But if it's a non-owned auto,
got it.
So it's going to be the employee, non-owned.
And I guess you could have like a car that's, if it's a non-owned, but the car is essentially worthless. It's not worth anything. But you get in an accident, someone is seriously injured. It's like,
and they tender a lawsuit. Yeah.
And you didn't have insurance coverage on something that's worth $2,500. You get in trouble.
Yeah. So,
wow.
And it's the liability side of the things, not even first party where you're insuring the vehicle itself for physical damage. It's third party coverage, that being liability. What triggers the liability coverage to start the clock ticking is a lawsuit, which you as a lawyer would.
Yeah.
You know about lawsuits.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what triggers the coverage.
I mean, how often does this happen where you're telling clients or prospective clients about NOA coverage and they go, I never thought of this. I never heard of this. All the time.
All the time. And there's even some agents that I've talked to in some other companies. I bring it up and I'm like, do you guys talk to your clients about, their employees? Do they have employees? Do they have personal auto? Everybody has personal auto. Do you talk to them about this exposure and this coverage? No, they don't.
This is the agents that don't know about this?
Yeah, I've talked to agents. Yeah, they don't do it.
Wow.
A lot of horse agents don't think about it. Because they're thinking about the equine liability.
Right.
They're thinking, all things equine, but non-owned auto is a big exposure. I actually know of a horse show exposure or somebody that didn't have it, and they had their employee go out. They had an accident. That entity was sued. They had no coverage. They had no defense.
Oh, man.
So it's very expensive.
And that transcends the horse industry. I mean, you're talking about any LLC, any company. Yeah. Except equestrians just don't.
They don't.
It's not top of mind. Yeah.
No, the horse people would never even think about that. It's really the agent's job to educate.
Okay, good. And we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about your process and how you educate your clients, because I think it's fascinating, and I think it's kind of unique because it's a real sort of personal service that I like to do with my group and my lawyers, and you just don't see it all the time. So we talked about NOA liability. Another one that we talked about that I was just flabbergasted was contracts.
Oh, my favorite.
And how contracts affects not only insurance coverage but claims.
Right.
And let's talk about that, because you see things that just make you shake your head about what's going on with equestrians and their contracts or lack of contracts.
Lack thereof. Yeah, always have a contract, bill of sale. Most barns will have a board agreement, but not everyone has a release. It's super important to have a release. If somebody comes on site to try a horse that's for sale, you have a new client that's coming on to ride a horse, to try anything to see test you as a trader if they want to ride there. Have everyone sign a release. You have to sign a release. Is it going to ultimately protect you from a lawsuit? No, because this day and age, as we all know, you can sue. It doesn't stop people from suing, but it's a layer of protection in your defense that this person came on site knowing there's a danger, there's an inherent risk, which we'll get to later with this statute, which is fascinating. There's an inherent risk. So you get on a horse. I mean, even we're here at the horse show, pulling in here, there's signs. It's the Florida state statute. So, you have an inherent risk anytime you get on a horse's back. So releases, contracts, leases, who's responsible for what, who owns the horse, bill of sale. I'm surprised at how many people don't really do bill of sales. Here's the horse, wire the money, okay. So there's quite a few that don't do that. And additional insured status, that is required in a contract. If there's no contract and there's no requirement for additional insured status, then that wording on a liability policy doesn't stand up.
Right. What is that? What's additional insured status?
Super important again. Me, just say I'm a trainer and I lease stalls here at WEF from somebody else. The barn owner needs to be listed as additional insured on my equine liability as a professional for my acts of negligence. So if they get sued for something I did, and they're named in or if I get sued and they're named in my lawsuit, or if they get sued, their coverage, their defense falls under my equine liability because it's my operation. I'm the reason something happened as a professional, and they're my landlord. So they have to be additional insured to get defense coverage. Additional insured status, sometimes it's blanket, it's automatic, as required by contract. You'll see that on a certificate, as required by contract. First thing any lawyer is going to ask for is the contract. You better have the contract.
Right.
And you better have that section in the contract.
Right.
So
how does that work? Because I go to we have horses. Go to all the barns down here. First thing you see on the gate on the barn is the Florida statute, and somebody gets hurt because a horse was being a horse, and then they sue, and then you're going to get a call as the insurance company. And what do you tell them? How much does that sign with the Florida statute actually help them?
Interesting point. We've talked about this. So the statute helps you in your defense, but me just doing, as you know, continuing ed for the Florida Bar Association. I just went as an attendee. I didn't get CE for that because I'm not a lawyer, but went to that lawyer's CE class, and that was brought up. The statute, and this is interesting, will protect you for the inherent risk of riding horses. Well, what's not inherent? That it's not going to protect you for. What's not inherent is gross negligence on behalf of any trainer or barn or landowner.
Right.
If they're negligent and the risk is not inherent, there's a big hole in the field. You put the wrong tack on a horse. You put a kid on a horse that's completely not suitable. That's negligence. So it's not going to protect you for that. So that's interesting.
What do you do? There's like when you're in that gray area. So let's say you have a horse.
It is subjective. So
that has a propensity to get funky at the in-gate, which a lot of horses do. And you know this. You're the trainer. You're giving a lesson. You know this. The horse rears at the in-gate. The kid falls, gets hurt.
It's a good question, actually, and that would be a lot of due diligence and discovery for that case. But on both sides, there's some comparative negligence there. I mean, as the parent, if it's a minor, as a rider, if it's not a minor, you know the horse has that if it's been disclosed. That would be the first thing. Was it disclosed? So if it's disclosed, and as a rider or a parent, you make the decision to move forward with that horse, you have some comparative negligence in that.
Right.
If it's not disclosed, well, then that's a different lawsuit. Then the trainer is grossly negligent in not disclosing that. But that's a he said, she said kind of thing. That would be a verbal, you know.
You know what I find fascinating is that at the showgrounds, okay, you're let's say anything, a Grand Prix class, a meter 20 class, you have a certain amount of time to look at the course. It's kind of like a layout, like on a map, and then you can do the coursework with your trainer, without your trainer, with a friend, without a friend,
right.
And you get hurt. where does that sit in the insurance spectrum? Because the horse is probably being a horse, and
Or
you
accidents
took the
happen.
risk
Yeah, I mean,
by riding.
yeah,
Yeah.
accidents happen, and you could have been you're not overfaced. You're actually the course is suitable for you. So something went wrong. A bird flies in front of the horse. There's some things that you just can't help.
Hmm.
How does that? Well, how does that affect anything, or as it relates to insurance? It just depends on what the real details of the incident are. If it's the horse show venue, if it's their error, 9 times out of 10 it isn't. Um, if it's a rider error, so if it's a rider error, they don't have any course really to go after anyone. It's just a rider error,
Yeah, I would
and
think
that happens a lot.
because they're walking the course,
Yeah,
and
and they've
then
made the decision to
they're
do.
professional folks, and then they make the decision to do it. And we talked about this last time. I get a lot of questions from judges, especially hunter judges. I don't know why, but what's my liability? How does the facilities insurance protect me, or doesn't protect me, if I'm judging a class and somebody gets hurt during the round?
So if they're judging the class and someone gets hurt, that's not going to speak so much to the judge
Mm.
as it might speak to the course design.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, whether it be a hunter or a jumper, if it's a jumper, you've walked the course, you know the course, you either know it's suitable for you or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
As a hunter rider, you don't walk horses, but you know what the course is, and your horse is either suitable to that division or not. So as far as a hunter judge or a jumper judge, do they have, so as a judge, no, do they really have anything to do with if someone gets hurt? No. As a jumper course designer, I've had some people, I know a specific case actually, the expert witness,
Mm.
and doing their due diligence and discovery. I was giving them some information for this horse show incident, and expert witness asked for the course designer. They had the course design. I think they had. I said, not getting the course designer. That's completely irrelevant. I said, what you can get is the class card to see who finished the course.
Okay.
If this person was overfaced, if everybody else finished the course and one person didn't, then it's that person. The onus is on them. They were overfaced potentially, or just had a bad day.
Okay.
But it's, as far as them, you can actually, it does exist. There is errors and omissions coverage for clinicians, for course designers, for judges. There is an E&O product. I've never sold it.
Okay. Do you ever have any of them, like the steward, the judges, asking for that?
No,
Really?
they don't, because they're really, as many incidents as there are at horse shows with people falling off and doing things, or something going wrong. They don't really think about that. The judges or the course designers or the stewards, they don't. There's really I feel there's really no true exposure there for them.
Mm-hmm.
If something happens, the rider's gonna sue the horse show. The horse show has coverage.
A couple of weeks ago, I was invited to go to the Equine Law Conference in Kentucky and give a talk on, of all things, trademark litigation in the equestrian world. And there were a bunch of really accomplished lawyers.
Trademark litigation.
Yeah, in the equestrian world.
Wow.
And there were accomplished lawyers there from all over the country talking about a lot of different things. Yeah. And one of them, who I know, and she's written tons of books, tons of articles, she was talking about insurance policies and indemnification clauses in there. And and I'm listening, and I wanted to know more, but I didn't get a chance to talk to her. Does that kind of come up in your business? Indemnification clauses and insurance policies?
No, nobody. Horse people don't really think about that. They
Okay.
just know they need the equine liability. They know the product's there. They get it. They're fine. Indemnification clauses. That's a good question, because is anyone really going to get indemnified? I mean,
Right.
You always have lawsuits. I see a lot
Right.
of lawsuits and a lot of homework, or discovery, all of that, to provide defense, and not a lot of indemnification.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to prove the gross negligence, which 9 times out of 10, like I say, isn't there. This is a dangerous sport. You're out on that field jumping, horses over wood. Anything could happen. A million things can happen. So the proof to really say someone's grossly negligent, I just think it's a dangerous sport, and things happen.
How about, I remember one time when we lived in New York way back when, at our barn, there was an order of feed. and there was something wrong with the feed, and some horses got sick. Thankfully, no one
Uh,
died, no one got seriously ill, but they had issues for a week or two. And are there specific things you can do in the policy to cover that type of thing? Because you have all the boarders like me,
right,
and the barn owners ordering the feed, and then your horse gets sick, and you're mad.
right.
Like, how does that work?
That would be interesting. So if they just got sick, ended up being okay, a horse owner would probably say, you probably get mad at the trainer, but if you have a good relationship with your trainer and the trainer says, listen, we got a bad batch of feed, okay, Mr. Trainer, it's not your fault.
Right.
But if a horse dies, I think that would be a whole different story. If one of the horses died, would the horse owner go after the trainer? Likely not.
Okay.
I don't think, because it's really not the trainer's fault. You can't tell if there's a bad, unless it's really bad. You see, something very evident. But they get bad feed and the horse dies. I would think that the horse owner would go after the feed company, not the trainer.
Okay.
Bigger pocket anyway.
Sure. Yeah. How about mortality insurance
Yeah, that's a fun one.
on horses?
It's interesting. I started doing mortality, God, 9 years ago. I was going to say a few years ago, 9 years ago. And it's interesting. It's a different kind of coverage. It's life insurance for the horse. It's interesting in the fact that you say you buy a $500,000 horse. You don't have to insure it for $500,000. You could say, well, I just want to get the major medical, so I'm going to insure it for $25,000. Okay, or I'll insure it for $250,000, and I'll get the major medical. The major medical is the big one, which I'll get to, that people like, because that's the first coverage that's triggered that you really buy and you use. The mortality, I always say when someone buys a new horse, insure it for the purchase price for the first year.
Okay.
Because you go through all the seasons and then you get to know the animal, really, and how it responds to different seasons, changing climate. You fly down here for west, then you go back up north, it's cold, potential for colic, shipping, all of that. So insure it for the full value for the first year. Then you've gone through a whole year of all the seasons, like I say. Then you figure out if you want to lower it or not. The major medical is interesting. People either love it or hate it because I like it because it does pay. But example, your horse colics. It doesn't go for surgery, but it colics, you have bills. The major medical will pay for the colics bills, but then it excludes colic. So I was, well, why am I buying this coverage? It's excluded now. Well, because it's like insuring a house that's on fire. The horse, or a suspensory issue. They'll pay the bills for the first incident, then it excludes that right hock for suspensory. That's like, why would you keep that coverage? The insurance company, that would be like insuring a house on fire, because it has a suspensory issue. You're going to constantly pay. So they do exclude it. Going back to the colic example, what I've found, and I'm always fighting for my people, I'm a true advocate for all of my clients. Go back to the insurance company in 6 months and say the horse hasn't colicked in 6 months. Can we get the exclusion removed? Colic is one of the only coverages they put it back on and remove the exclusion. So, but that's up to the agent to do.
Yeah, right.
The agent has to be your advocate. I constantly say that. If you don't have someone fighting for you and keeping their eye out for you and looking at your coverage and talking to you, what have you changed in your operations? But I digress. So the mortality and the major medical, interesting coverage.
It's interesting because over the years, what personally we've struggled with was, so we've bought horses that are 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old, 14-year-old, depending on the horse. And are there guidelines for, let's say I'm buying a 5-year-old and I'm hoping with the proper training in 5 years this horse is going to be, meter 35, meter 40. Is it just so individual with the horse, the coverage that you recommend, or are there guidelines based on the age of the horse?
So the starting point is really the purchase price if it's a new horse, or if it's a young starting out, it's a purchase price, it's show record.
Okay.
So you bought the 6-year-old relatively young. I'll just speak to jumpers. You want it to go up to the meter 40, meter 50. You bought it for whatever the price is, 200. So in 3 years now, it is moved up the ranks. So you want to increase the value. To increase the value, whether it be hunter or jumper, actually, it's going to be the show records, justification of value.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have to prove that the horse is worth that.
You know, and speaking to that, another interesting thing that come up in my cases when I have breach of contract or fraud case involving horses is equine appraisers. Uh, they seem to be prevalent out there. Some, like any other profession, some are better than others. Do you ever deal with them? Do they come up in the insurance context?
I haven't dealt with them actually. I haven't had to, but it's an interesting concept. Something I should actually probably dig into. What's the value of this horse? Like I just said, the justification of value is going to be the show record.
Right.
So, I mean, you can buy a horse for 300 with the intent of going for the meter 35 to the meter 50, and it doesn't. So then what? What's the value now? If you're crashing, it starts stopping. Well, now it's not even worth 300.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's subjective. So I'd be curious actually to delve into topic for another podcast.
Yes, ma'am. Certainly. To that point, do the insurance policies ever have, sometimes you get the vet reports, not all the time, but sometimes you get the vet reports where, the horse is checked out, the horse is fine, suitable for the intended purpose, which might be a meter 10, which might be something higher than the meter 10.
Right.
Do the insurance policies ever have statements in there like that? Do they ever cover those kind of things?
No, cover it as far as like what it's intended for. No, they just really focus on the value and justifying that value.
Okay. And does it matter if there's an appraisal? I mean, does that change the way you value things?
That's never actually been brought up before. So, okay, client has a horse for 200, wants to increase it to 400. I'm going to get an appraisal done on the horse. I don't know if that would actually fly with an insurance company.
Really?
That would be a good test.
Okay.
Because again, they're going to look at the USEF records or FEI records.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen appraisals that are all over the lot. Like I'm looking at the FEI record, I'm looking at the USEF record, then I'm looking at the appraisal, and I'm going, huh?
Yeah.
They don't match up.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check. That's interesting. Like
Yeah.
what qualifies them as an appraiser? Obviously, they're certified.
Right.
But
right.
What does that mean?
Yeah, don't know. That'll be topic for next time.
Yes,
we'll both look into that. The other area that we talked about a lot when we had lunch a couple of weeks ago was barn equipment. This is another thing.
Yeah.
Where you're telling me that equestrians don't think about this. It's not top of mind. I'm going, huh? It's like.
Yeah, I know. Well, if you don't know insurance, you don't know insurance, and the trainers know what to do out there. And again, they depend on their agents to educate them and tell them what they just bought. And some people are just like, insurance is Greek. So, well, I have insurance. My equipment's covered. My everything's covered. No, it's not. If you just have liability, it's third-party coverage. It's if you get sued. It's you as a trainer, a rider falls off. They decide you're not good. They sue you. That's what your liability is for. Property coverage, which would be equipment, is first party coverage, meaning it's mine. This is my property. This is first party. This is mine. So I have to insure this cup, a Flagler cup. But that's tack equipment, bridles, tack trunks, all of that, blankets. All of that is not covered under your liability. It's only covered if you buy equipment coverage. And it really came to mind with me that nobody understands that when the fires were out in California a few years ago and barns were burned and their equipment was burned with it. The horses were fine, thank God, but they're trying to put claims in with their agents. And it was brought to my attention by someone out in California and said, everybody's like really mad because none of their equipment's insured. They thought they had insurance. They have no insurance. It's not covered under their liability. I said, no, he was even confused. I said, no, it's not covered under the liability. You have to buy that separately.
And we're talking about tack and saddles and bridles and all of that kind of stuff.
And tack trunks.
Which
and
they
blankets.
think, I got the horse, all that's covered.
I have the insurance.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Crazy. Wow.
So you have to do that separately, folks. Have to get your tack equipment done separately.
Okay. And I think the part of your background that I find the most fascinating is the amount of time, the love you have for the law. And,
I know, I really do.
And you go to a lot of legal seminars and a lot of continuing education. Just tell us about that a little bit, because I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of folks saying, well, Mike, you're not the only one in the world that does it. Well, you're the only one in the world that I know that does it. and I'm grateful, being a lawyer, that you have such an interest in that. But what kind of continuing education do you do on the legal front?
On the legal front, I actually do CLE. I initiated because I insure law
Okay.
firms, so they're malpractice. So I initiate their risk management, and within that, we do seminars, and I bring in somebody who's actually ex-CIA who was a kidnap and ransom negotiator. Super interesting. But he came into the first one I did. I did it for multiple law firms, and it's CLE for them, but it's risk management for me to help mitigate claims for them. So listening to this guy speak and educate all the attorneys for each firm are there, and just listening to the client intake process. And I transferred this over to insurance. So the client intake process, what you do, how you talk to the client, how you bring them on, what your conversation is, how much do you learn about them, and all of that. Contracts, huge, huge, huge in CLE for law firms, for legal. I mean, and that's what I speak to even in insurance. Contracts are super important. Your insurance policy is a contract. So it's just, and then dealing with lawsuits with my clients, I find it fascinating when I love to deal with the attorneys on the lawsuits. It's just the whole discovery process, the interrogatories.
Oh boy.
Yeah, those are fun.
Now we're talking shop. Okay. All right. You like the interrogatories?
Yeah, very fun.
Okay. Do you like when you see the answers come in and they try to avoid answering them? Do you like those too?
Yeah. Don't answer 9 through 15. So it's fun, and just like I said earlier, they wanted on one case. They said, "Oh, expert witness wants a copy of the course design and the course designer's name," and I said,
Right.
"You're not getting it.
Right. And
you're getting the class card."
And did the expert even have a clue why he wasn't entitled to it? He just wanted everything.
I explained, yeah. Okay. I explained. So it's fun to deal with that, and I put together when it's different entities. I do co-defense.
Yeah.
And it's just really fun. The law, really, actually, I love.
Well, you got to come down to the equine law seminar next year.
Yeah.
I think you'd love it. It's 2 days of just lawyers talking about all things horses, all things equine, and it's
a different perspective.
And it's a couple of days before the Derby, and you meet lawyers from all over the country. It's a big event. It's a big deal.
My Lexington office, actually, I think the producer there, she went to that.
Okay, yeah, it was lovely. I mean, that was my first time in Lexington, and the venue was a Marriott hotel that was literally 10 minutes from the airport. And that Lexington Airport is like a teeny,
stamp.
Yeah, it's teeny. But I mean, man, I loved it.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I loved it, and I had the privilege of saying, I stood up there and I said, "My name is Mike Nicodema, and I'm from Wellington, Florida."
Yep.
The horse capital of the world.
Yep, it is.
No, it was great. It was really good.
I'd like to do that. I think next year we're going to do a class trip to the Derby. So.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a class trip next year.
Yeah.
I'm down. I love it. So let's talk about your process, because I just found it really hands-on, personal, the way you interact with your clients, the way you educate them. I thought it was terrific. Why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, so my process, yes, I have somebody that approaches me, let's say it's a trainer here, and they say, "Missy, I want you to do my insurance or help me with my insurance." And my first statement is, send me all of your existing policies, which is interesting because a lot of people say, "Well, I'm not going to send you what I have. I want you to show me what you can do." I'm not into reinventing the wheel. So start with what they have, because sometimes what they have is fine and just needs some tweaking. Sometimes it's not fine and it needs to be completely changed. And I do this across the board, commercial, equine, just across the board. Any new client that comes to me and says, "I want you to help me," I get all their policies. I do a full review of everything they have. I love spreadsheets, so I put everything in a spreadsheet, little summary, and then 9 times out of 10, if it's a trainer, I know their operations, so I don't have to ask them about their operations. Some things I'll have to nail down if they do clinics or something like that. So I know the operations. So I'm like, "Well, you have this, this, and this. I know you have employees. You don't have non-owned auto liability."
Oh, okay.
That's a killer. The other thing is, more on the commercial side than equine, but some equines do provide benefits, workers' comp, maybe some health care or something. Employee benefits liability. That's another coverage that's missed by a lot of people. In the equine world, not that many are going to provide health benefits to their employees, but some do. And if you do, you need EBL coverage, employee benefits liability. It's E&O coverage for benefits admin. So I'm a trainer, you're my employee. I put you on my health plan, but I forget about your wife by mistake. She gets hurt or gets sick. She has no coverage because she's not on the plan because I forgot. Well, that's where the EBL kicks in. It's E&O coverage. So we trigger that. We tender a claim under the EBL coverage. Now she has benefits.
Okay.
Her whatever happened, it gets paid for. So
I remember you telling me once, Mike, I pay attention to every detail.
So yeah, I do. I take a little bit longer to do some things because I do pay attention to every detail. You look at things from 100,000 feet, and then you drill it down, and then you look at it this way. And it takes time to do that. If you're going to do it the right way, look at the operations, look at all the coverages, your equine liability, your non-owned auto liability, your EBL, touch everything that could potentially be an exposure for them and educate the client. This is what you have. This is good. This is what you don't have. This you really should get. This we can talk about. So I don't believe in overselling whatsoever. I mean, insurance, it's a painful product or line item in your balance sheet that you see, oh my God, I spend all this money on insurance. I spend all this money on a product that I really don't want to use. So, and if I do use it, hopefully they don't drop the claim. So I also help on the claim side. A dirt bike is stolen. Should I put a claim in? No. Use your insurance for what you really need it for. If you keep putting in a number of claims, they will potentially drop you.
Wow.
So you have to be mindful of what you use your insurance for. So that's part of my intake process. I sit and have a real conversation about all their exposure, all of the coverage they have or don't have, and claim what you're really buying insurance for is the claim. So educate the client on the claim process. This is the type of claim you should put in. This is not the type of claim you should put in. So
now how do you, especially during season, equestrians are busy people, and they kind of have short attention spans because they're worried about the next show. They're worried about the horse that just got injured. They're worried about all the stuff that's part and parcel of their business. And so you have that conversation with them. Maybe they retain all of it. Maybe they didn't because they have a million things going on. What do you kind of do to follow up to make sure that they're getting what you're saying?
I usually follow up with horse people, specifically trainers, on Monday.
Okay.
Today, there's no one
here.
riding.
Exactly.
So Monday's my admin day, as I call it, for trainers. And then I'm also a good stalker. I do. It's my job to make sure they pay attention. It's my job to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do for me to help them. So that's me. I don't send the email and forget about it. I send the email and then, I'm of the 2 email rule, 2 emails, phone call. Not a lot of people do that. People in the insurance industry tend to be very transactional and complacent. Those 2 words have gotten me a lot of business.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because I do the review. I sit down with them. I educate them. I've been doing this for so long. I just know insurance, and I've been riding horses for so long. I know that side of the fence, pun intended. So to sit down with them and educate them and say, this is the way it's going to go. This is what you're going to do. There's a trust factor.
Right. And I know you have a team because you have such prestigious clients, and you got to have help.
Yeah.
But in the end, kind of like with lawyers, they hired the lawyer as much as they hired the law firm because of the personal relationship is developed. And in the end, if something happens, they're calling Missy Sullivan, not your team.
Right.
So how do you kind of navigate all that?
I work a lot.
Okay. Okay.
I work a lot. But I work on the week. I always say I'm available 25/8. It's not 24/7 anymore. It's 25/8. And they all know that. And I get phone calls at 5:30 in the morning on a Sunday night at 9 o'clock, and I answer them. Okay. And because at the end of the day, I have such a relationship with people, with my clients. Some of them I didn't know before they were my clients. Now they're my best friends. They're my family. Okay. They're my family. I have to take care of them. It's my job to protect them. I take it very personally to protect people. I'm a protective person, naturally. So
it shows. It does. It's fantastic. Now here's the fun part.
Oh God.
Here's the part that I didn't tell you about.
Uh-oh, sipping my coffee.
So in these podcasts, I like to do kind of a word association.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to say a word, and you tell me the first word that comes to your mind without thinking a lot.
We might have to edit.
And
No.
and I'm going to use 3 words.
Okay.
And I didn't tell you what they were in advance,
No,
right? You have
no.
no idea what these
I have
words
no idea, and I'm a little scared.
are. And I'm looking at them. None of them have 4 letters in them, so I think we're good.
Okay.
So the first word is family. What's the first word that comes to mind?
Exactly that. My clients.
Okay.
They're my family. I take care of them. They're my people. That's my client. That's my book of business. My family.
Okay, love it. Integrity is the second word.
That's my favorite word, actually. Integrity. I use that all the time. Not even with insurance related. Integrity. You have to have integrity with what you're doing and accountability, and always do the right thing and make sure you're doing the right thing for your client, whatever that is. You have to do everything with integrity. That's like, that word encompasses 6,000 other characteristics that come with integrity. That's a huge word.
Yeah, I mean, in my business, I tell the young lawyers in my group that, integrity is something that if you lose it,
yeah,
it's real hard to get it back.
yeah,
And I insist that they, there's always going to be bad news in any situation, no matter how good a lawyer you are and how good a doctor you are and how good an insurance agent you are. And I insist that when bad news comes, you tell the client immediately. You don't wait a day, you don't wait an hour, you don't wait 15 minutes. You tell them.
yeah.
It must be the same for you.
It is. I always have to deliver. Listen, it's a product, like I said, nobody really likes or want to buy. It's expensive. The insurance market right now in South Florida, as far as property is concerned, because property is the most painful at the moment, the rates are going up triple. I mean, and I'm delivering very bad news to some very big clients with their property schedules, with their premium going up immensely, going up into the 9-figure range. That's a very tough pill to swallow, and it's very hard for me to deliver, but I feel their pain. I'm not just delivering that to them. I'm in that same boat with them, delivering that message. So,
and I'm glad you brought that up because I want to make sure our listeners understand this about you. Yes, you're an expert in equine related insurance, but that's not all.
No.
You tell us about, the wide range of expertise that you have in the insurance business, period.
Yeah, no, I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm a commercial property and casualty agent.
Okay.
Insurance person, broker. Doing all things non-equine. Law firms, my favorite. Greenberg Traurig. I love doing malpractice for law firms. I love doing that. It's one of my favorite things to do because lawyers are an educated consumer.
Yes.
So, but also I do homeowners associations, hotels, country clubs, restaurants, residential, everything. If it's insurable, that's what I've been doing.
And I would think the broad range of skills translate. It's like you have your toolbox and you have a broad range of skills in it. So now when you're doing horse folks, you can tap into that.
I do.
Yeah.
I do, and it's in looking even for my account executives that are working with me. I like to hire a commercial person and teach them farm because it's they're much more technical, much more sophisticated, and know the insurance world on a much deeper level, as opposed to not bashing farm people, but farm and ranch people who do that insurance. They tend to not think about, hence my whole thing about non-owned auto. When I take a lot of trainers over, it's never there. So farm people are less, not all, but less technical to a degree than a commercial person. Commercial is much more in depth. You have to know a lot more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last word.
Uh-oh, I forgot there was another word.
And this is a softball for you. The last word is communication.
Oh, wow. We could talk about that all day long. Communication is everything, because if you don't communicate, then how do you teach? How do you educate? How do you advocate? You have to communicate, and good news and bad news.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All things communication, and verbally. If you do it verbally, you have to back it up with an email.
Mm-hmm. All the time, right?
Well, yeah,
you want to
because
make
if
sure
it's not in word,
everybody's
everybody's
on the
on
same
spot.
page.
Here's the email. It's the same thing as a contract. It's in writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Last topic. and you have a little bit of a clue about this one because we talked about it.
Okay.
But and I want everyone to hear this. What advice do you have for young folks coming up through the ranks that want to be a business person like you, an entrepreneur like you? We live in a world where there's a lot of challenges. What advice can you give the young folks coming up?
Okay. In a few words, in a nutshell, know your worth.
Mm-hmm.
Know your worth. And make sure you surround yourself with people, this is key, that also know your worth and respect you. And if they don't, you remove yourself from that equation and find somebody that does know your worth and respect you. And I can attest to that very much. So, my father even raised me that way and said, do what you need to do, work hard, stay true to yourself, and do what you need to do. And I really stuck hard to that. I do know my worth. It was tested recently, and I pulled myself up, and I'm doing what I'm doing best. And
You're doing what you love and what you're great at.
So you do have to know your worth and stay true to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's key.
Well, Missy, we got to the end.
We did.
Yeah, and you were fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
You were terrific.
This
I can't wait to do the next one.
I know, this is fun.
We'll have to get into some of those little more nitty-gritty issues.
The appraiser.
Like the appraiser. We'll have to both figure that one out together.
Yeah, no, it's really fun to do this, and I'd like to, we're going to capture a broad, or throw a broad net across and educate a lot of people at once. And I really think people in the horse world need to hear a lot of stuff that they just don't know about. I don't know if they've heard it enough or haven't heard it at all, but they do need to be educated and learn how to protect themselves.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's kind of a shared passion we have. Like if you're a horse lover, you're a horse lover.
Yeah.
If you're a horse person, you're a horse person.
It's in your blood.
I remember when I started our group, I was doing some research on the industry and the numbers and the financials, and I think 1 out of every 32 or 33 people in the United States either owns a horse or is a horse lover. And,
I know.
And there's been a special relationship between horses and people since there's been horses and people.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And once it's in your blood,
you can't get it out.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Truth. That's the truth. But thank you so much for having me.
No, that was awesome. That was great. And to our audience, stay tuned for another episode of Greenberg Trari's Equine Industry Group podcast. See you all soon.
Bye.